We are continuing with the life of Rabbi Yosse HaKohen. I hope this is the last time that we'll be discussing him before we move to the next Chacham on the list. But for right now, we discussed this Chacham from the Talmud, the different teachings in the Talmud, very few that exist about him. There's two more stories about Rabbi Yosse HaKohen that I found in the writings of Rabbi Yosef Massas of Morocco. His source is a handwritten manuscript of stories of Chachamim. So I can't tell you if these stories are authoritative or not, but they're important enough that Rabbi Yosef Massas felt that they should be included in his book on the Chachamim. Rabbi Yosef Massas traveled between many cities and many people's libraries. In the olden days, only wealthy people had books. Yes. Books were very expensive. And I'm talking about printed books are expensive. So how much more so, the books that are not printed, those books are even more expensive. And many people used to have in their family a book, a handwritten manuscript, wherever you would like to sit. You can get over here. The screen is okay, the camera won't see you. You can go and see books that are printed in any Beit HaKnesset. But to find books that were written by the authors, many families had their grandfather wrote a book, their great-grandfather wrote a book, maybe their grandparents owned a book that they bought from somebody. They were handwritten books, they were written on paper, some of them were written on parchment, some of them were written on leather, everyone was written on something else. And over the years, some people printed these books, some didn't print these books. Very often, Rabbi Yosef Massas said he would go to someone's library, he would write down a story that he read in someone's books, a handwritten book. But then when he wanted to go back to check out the book again, so he went back to this, he said, there's a detail I wanted to look up in that book. And he went to the library, and the person's house burned down. Somebody made a pot of soup, the soup burned, fire, the house is destroyed, and the rest was history. That book was forgotten from the Jewish people. Sometimes the non-Jews would burn down Jewish people's houses. They would burn down our books, our libraries. The number one sign of an evil people are people who burn books. There's a book I read as a child. It's called Fahrenheit 451. It's a terrifying book. You shouldn't read it. This book is about a world in which reading becomes illegal. That's the world. That's what happens.
They made a movie out of it.
They made By the way, the irony of making a movie out of a book that was talking about people stopping to read books. Oh yeah, I didn't watch the movie, I can't tell you. They outlawed the books. You weren't allowed to read books. Today, by the way, they don't have to make laws. Nobody reads books anymore. You go to people's houses, they don't have books. They have TVs the size of a movie theater in their house. But books? Nah, a few books. Somebody once finished an our bedin. He said, Rabbi, you didn't warn me that when I convert to Judaism, I need a bigger house. I said, why? He said, because I keep filling my house with books and books and books and books. I don't have anywhere to put them. I said, welcome. That's the problem of being part of Am Yisrael. We're people of the book. What kind of person of the book doesn't have books? I go to somebody's house and I see they don't have books in their house. I get scared. I feel like maybe I'm somewhere dangerous. I should look over my shoulder. People who don't have books, I don't know what kind of people they are. Especially if the TV is bigger than the bookcase. You go to somebody's house and you see all this, look, you're in this room, for example. All the chairs in this room are facing Dawan Kodesh. Everybody knows you come to this room. What is the purpose of this room? The Torah. You go to people's houses, all the chairs in the house are facing the TV. Even if they have books in their house. They're on the wall, they're in the back, they're in the room. They're telling their children the whole message of this house is the TV. But I'm not from those rabbis that tell you now, throw away your TVs, burn your Netflix account. I'm not telling you that. I think you have those things, but don't focus your whole life on them. It's something that a person has to. Books are important. So Rabbi Yosef Massas would go from library to library, and he would find these ancient books. And every time, I'll tell you a story about him. Rabbi Yosef Massas, when he was a young boy, his father died. Maybe even before his bar mitzvah, or maybe around then. So he was about 13 years old when his father died. And his father was a rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Massas. wrote many, many pages of Torah. The family was so busy after he died, when the father of the family dies, especially that many years ago. So his mother's trying to make a parnasah. The kids are all trying to work to make a parnasah. Every class. How about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Wonderful. So Rabbi Yosef Masas, him and his siblings and his mother were so busy trying to make a parnasah after the father died. They didn't have time to look at his writings, the things that he wrote. They put them in a box and they put them up in the attic. When he turned old enough, maybe later in his teens or in the early 20s, he wanted to see what his father wrote. He wanted to publish a book. His father never published a book. And he went up there. Some of the papers were destroyed by water damage. Some of them, the moths ate them. Little bugs, worms. We have a book of his father called Nishmat Chaim, in which Rabbi Yosef Masas printed all of the papers that were left. Sometimes in the middle of the paragraph he says, I wish I would know what's the rest, but it got erased by water. Some of the pages in the book, he went to ask other Chachamim. He said, you knew my father? Tell me something my father told you. You sat in the Bedin with my father? Tell me something my father wrote. You were there with my father in the Beit Knesset? Tell me what he said about Parashan. He used to write those things down. We have a little book. I have it in my house. Nishmat Chaim, from his father's writings. So sometimes Rabbi Yosef Masas is the only source of a story. Because after we left, nobody brought these books with them. Or they brought these books and they got destroyed. So I want to read to you two stories tonight. On page 453 of the PDF titled Rabbi Yosse HaKohen, Nachalat Avot, Rabbi Yosef Masas. עוד נמצא כתוב בספר מעשיות כתבי יד ישן נושן בלשון ערבית. I said, I have a story found in an ancient Yashan Noshan, not just old, an old manuscript in Arabic. וזה העתקות לעברית, and I'm copying it down now into Hebrew. Let's go. שאלה מטרונה אחד ברומי לרבי יוסי הכהן. There was a matrona. What is a matrona? In Spanish, matrona means anything?
A woman, a matron.
Yeah, what is a matron? Zev, who's hiding behind the TV screen.
It's like some rock concert behind the podium.
Some people pay extra for that seat over there. Yeah? What is a matron?
Very wealthy, high class.
You tell me in Spanish there's no word matrona?
Yeah, that's a killer.
Oh no, not that kind. What's a patron? Yeah, what is a patron? So what is a matron?
Like a female.
Very good. It's a female patron, yes? It would be? Oh, okay. You see, very good. So it would be patrona. So what is a patrona? It's El Jefa, no? This is the head of she was a very important lady.
What is the Sefer Masim?
A story, a book of stories. A collect.
She's my boss.
Well, in Mexican culture, they call her patrona or jefa. They call jefa to their mother too.
They better call her Jefa.
Yeah.
I know.
Jefa is more than patrona though.
Okay.
Patrona is just the boss. Jefa is
Like the head, it's the head boss. I got it. She runs the whole cartel. Yes? So this, here you have matrona. Matrona is this idea. Matronita in Aramaic. Yes? A matronita is a lady who's from royalty. She's from she's very wealthy. A very important person. Yes? And now if you're talking about Rome, she's someone connected with the Roman government. Yes? So she asks, Shala matrona echat beromi li Rabbi Yosse HaKohen. So Rabbi Yosse HaKohen was in Rome. Rome is the occupying country of the land of Israel. So this is like going to the headquarters of the people that are occupying Eretz Israel. And she asked him the question, מפני מה הגלה הקדוש ברוך הוא אתכם לבין האומות? Rabbi Yosse HaKohen, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu send you into Galut? Why did he send the Jewish people into exile? What's the reason? Now, maybe he doesn't want to answer her. Why should he have to answer her? Because if he doesn't answer her, he'll get in trouble. That's why he has to answer her. So he tells her, Amar la kidei lelamed otam da'at. Hashem sent us into the nations of the world to teach them da'at, to give them some knowledge, some wisdom. Amar lo, ma da'at limatem otam. What wisdom did you teach us? Amar la, shehayu ovdim lezahav velechesef, ve'achshav ovdim le'el emet. It used to be that the non-Jews would worship gold and silver. And now, because of us, they worship one God. Amalo umay ahanitu lan bezeh. She says, okay, Rabbi, fine. So now we believe in one God. But how did that help us that we believe in one God? Who cares if we worship gold and silver? We worship one God. What did it help us? Amarla. He told her, Ho'alnu lachem litkashet ulityapot. We helped you to decorate yourself. Because when your forefathers used to worship gold and silver, so you didn't wear gold and silver because you worshipped the gold and the silver. But when we stopped you from worshiping gold and silver, now you were able to wear the gold necklaces and the jewels and the diamond, the rings. Rabbi Yosse HaKohen was making fun of her. Because he figured out that she wasn't such an intelligent woman. Amra Yashar, wow, that's good, Rabbi. I like your answer. But he was making fun of her. The husband of this matrona was there. He laughed. He says to Rabbi Yosse HaKohen, Alzo sachakta. About my wife, you could make fun of her. Yeah? But I'm a smarter guy than her. What are you going to tell me? You think I really believe you that the reason you helped us is because of gold and silver? I mean, you're making fun of my wife's lack of intelligence. But I'm an intelligent man over here. Are you going to give me the same answer you gave her? Notice, by the way, Anhel, that he says here, he doesn't say he's the patrona of the matrona. He says that he's the husband of the matrona. Notice. Amar lo, he tells him, Rabbi Yosse HaKohen, mitchila haytem shotim. Originally, my dear friend, you were stupid people. Lishtachavot v'la'avod ma'aseh yedei oman. You used to bow down to things that other people made with their hands. They made idols, you used to worship them. But now we turned you into civilized human beings. And when you continue your research and you discover that there's an olam haba, there's another world that is eternal. Over there, the neshama, which is the main part of the body, will receive consequences. אז תערב לכם מאוד עבודת האלוהים האחד. It will become very sweet for you that we made you worship one God. ותתחרטו על איוולתכם הראשונה. And your ivelet, your stupidity that you used to believe in idols, you will regret it. המעט בעיניכם דבר זה? What, this is a small matter for you? You think it's a small deal that we taught you about Olam Haba? Amar lo, he said to him, Tov yashar Elohechem, your God is good and he is just. Asher shalach etchem nehorot lanu haderech hatov hayashar. You taught us the way that is good and straight, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent you to us. So what is he telling him? So the reason why we came to you was to teach you about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When the wife asked, why did it help us that you taught us about HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He says, because before you used to worship gold and silver, now you get to wear gold and silver. The husband realized it was a joke. He says, so you tell me the real answer. He says, the real answer is by believing in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you realize that the world has consequences in it. You do good things, you go to Olam Haba. You do bad things, and Olam Haba, it's not going to be so pleasant for you. We got you, when you go up there, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu lets you into Olam Haba because you believed in one God. Who's going to believe in one God? These are Goyim. They don't follow the Torah, but they believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. After 120 years, you're going to go to Gan Eden. Go to Olam Haba. Remember, those words are not the same. And Olam Haba, they're going to give you reward for believing in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's when you're going to thank us for teaching you about Hashem. You're right, Hashem on his own, it's not going to help you. But the reward you're going to get because you believed in Hashem, that will help you. By the way, it's easier to go to Olam Haba as a Jewish person or a non-Jewish person? Why? Why is it easier as a non-Jewish person?
Because you don't have that many mitzvot you need to follow, and there's not that many things to judge you on.
How many mitzvot does a non-Jewish person have to follow? 7. 7 mitzvot. To be Jewish, how many mitzvot do you have to follow?
113.
Look,
600.
613. Which means you also have 613 opportunities to get in, but also 613 opportunities to get out. In the Bet Adin, we tell a person, it's not a good bet for you. You're trying to get into Gan Eden. It's a bad idea to become Jewish. See, if you break Shabbat and you're not Jewish, who cares? You're still going to go to Gan Eden. But you become Jewish, you break Shabbat, that's the end of it for you. We stone you to death. What's the point of... if you're thinking about investment, this is a bad investment. Only if he says, I know and I still want to do it, then he's okay, you're crazy enough to be Jewish. Come. But it makes more sense. He's a person, he just believes in the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's telling him he'll go to Olam Haba because of us, that we taught you about it. I'm not sure that I should read the end of the story because it's not politically correct.
Could you read it and then
Amra lo hamatrona. The matrona says, Velama sichakta bi. Now the wife, she's mad. How come you made fun of me? Amar la, lo sichakti bach. He said, I wasn't making fun of you. I was just aware מפני שהקישוטין חביבים על הנשים יותר מהדעת ועולם הנשמות. She's not here to fight it out, so wait till Chava comes back. He says, I know that you're from the women who prefer your jewelry over Olam Haba.
That's not what it says.
What does it say, Rabbani? What does it say, Rabbani?
It says because women tend to like jewelry more
Then they like
than
that,
their dad.
knowledge in Olam Haba. וישחק בעלה ויאמר ישר. Her husband starts laughing. He says, you're right. So the husband is an idiot, by the way. והיא נתחרקמו פניה, and her face got very angry. ותאמר לבעלה, and she tells her husband, גם אתה מסכים לדברי החכם היהודי? Well, you also agree with the Jewish חכם? ויאמר לה, אמת אני מסכים. She says, the truth is, I agree with him. ויאמר לו רבי יוסף, Rabbi Yosef looks at him and says, ומי גילה לך האמת? So who taught you the truth? הלא החכם היהודי? It was a Jewish chacham who taught you the truth. ויאמר כן, he says yes. ויפרדו איש מעל אחיו בשלום, and they say goodbye to each other like brothers in Shalom al Israel. Maybe Rabbi Yosse HaKohen went to Shalom, but he went home to the doghouse, the other guy. He had to sleep in the backyard. And truthfully, the end of the story, I don't understand what the purpose of the end of the story is. I don't get it. I don't know what it adds. Aside from taking a mean jab at women, I don't understand really the point of the story, to the truth. I read it to you because it's there. And if you're sitting in the shi'ur, so obviously you're not from those women who care more about jewelry than that. Okay, so let's say we're not talking about you. There is a tendency among Chachamim to recognize that at least at a certain point in our history, women were uneducated. And usually uneducated people didn't care about things that had to do with education. That wasn't the way it was supposed to be. In my opinion, it's part of the curse of the world that we're in right now. But it's definitely something that was. It may even be something that is. Unfortunately, in the Jewish community today, if I were going to do some mega challah bake with red string tying and oil pouring of essential oils on your nose, I could fill up a whole stadium of holy, righteous women that would come. But if I were going to arrange I don't know, Harav Peretz to come give a shiur on Shulchan Aruch in the San Diego Stadium, and you'd have to bring your own food because they're not going to give you sushi there, then probably it would just be all of us who are here there, and you wouldn't fill up a stadium. This is a problem on our end. It's a problem on what we offer. If you go to different Batei Knesset and see what do they offer the men, and what do they offer the women, the assumption they're working with is still this assumption of Rabbi Yosse HaKohen. Women get Rosh Chodesh parties, joke nights, movie nights, bingo nights, menorah making nights, ice sculpting nights, what do you name it, they do it. The men, they usually have an entirely different curriculum. Now, some places it's even worse. Some places both people are doing menorah making and ice sculpting and gelt dropping and whatever else they do. But the ideal is to bring us to a place where people are learning Torah. Everybody appreciates chokhmah and dat and wisdom. I think that we merit to live in a generation where that's true. We're very lucky to live in a generation where women are learning Torah, that men are learning Torah, that everybody's learning Torah, and we should be very proud of that. And every time there's an opportunity to push that more, what is the purpose of being Jewish without a Torah? What's so good about us if we don't have a Torah? What is the point of saying, I'm a Jew, but I don't know anything about the Torah? So what's the point? I've been religious for 25 years, but I never opened up a book in my life. So what does that mean? I keep kosher for 10 years, but I never learned the laws of kashrut from the Shulchan Aruch. So if you never learned laws of kashrut from Shulchan Aruch, how are you even sure that you're keeping kasher? I keep Shabbat. Did you ever study Hilchot Shabbat? Never. So what makes you keeping Shabbat? Sometimes, by the way, I feel that there's like an injustice of sorts. You know, when you become an American citizen, they make you study all these things that no American knows. Who is the first president? Who is it? What is the law? What are the three legal? What is the difference between Congress and the Senate? They make you all these things you have to study. You go stop an American over here in La Jolla, Pacific Beach, and go ask him a question. What's the difference between Congress and the Senate? Ask them this. Who's the vice president right now? Probably they don't know the answer to the question. Ask them why they celebrate the 4th of July. Or what happened on what's Memorial Day all about? They don't know what you're talking about. So here you have, don't give them so much credit over there. Here you have somebody who has to join the American people, has to know all these things that Americans don't know. I feel sometimes in the same way when we do Giyur to Judaism. When people learn all the halachot, learn all of the background, all of the history, then they meet a person they're Jewish, their mother was Jewish, their grandmother was Jewish, but they don't know anything about Judaism. So this person, they hold Jewish citizenship, but their Judaism is barely worth the paper that it's written on. When someone comes to me for a Giyur and they're in a relationship, I always say, I'm not going to do this unless your Jewish partner comes to class also. I don't do it the other way. Just because your Jewish partner is Jewish doesn't mean they know anything. I know how to make you Jewish, but the Jewish partner is going to stay back in the dust. We live in a world where people appreciate that. Hang around people that appreciate knowledge, that appreciate things that are important. There's one more story here. He said, I found in that same book a handwritten manuscript of stories. It's almost impossible to understand the story. So I copied it in Hebrew and I also added in my own explanations so you can understand what's being written. Because they're very precious words. And this is the following story. Sha'al hegmon echad. I don't know the origin of the word hegmon. My feeling is it's not Hebrew. Yeah, it's a Greek word, a Roman word, Zev. What do we appropriate from?
It's like a ruler.
Yeah? Yeah, but it's hegemonia, but we borrowed it from another language, no?
I think. Yeah.
The political and economic and military predominance of one state over another, and was designed in ancient Greece.
Ancient Greece. Okay, there you go. That's the origin of that word, and we borrowed it in Hebrew. Give me one moment. Okay. Sha'al Hegmon Echad Rabbi Yosse HaKohen. One Hegmon, so he was a ruler. He asked Rabbi Yosse HaKohen, K'tiv b'toratchem, it's written in your Torah. V'samti et zaracha k'chol hayam asher lo yisafer merov. I will put your descendants like the sand of the sea, that you will not be able to count. Why can't you count the sand? There's so much of it. How are you going to count all of it? If somebody wanted to commission a project now to count all the sand in the world, they could do it? No. It's simply not something you could do. Yes?
Every speck of sand.
Vadavar mavhil, says Rabbi Yosef Messias, is a very scary thing. Hayeken, could it be that would be the Jewish people? Halo kol yoshvei tevel en olim b'misparam, af k'garya da'afra. Garyeva da'afra. You think about it. All of the people on earth, how many people are on earth? Anyone know the number? 8 billion? Okay, 8 billion people on earth. Do you think that 8 billion, do you think there's more than 8 billion pieces of sand in La Jolla shores?
Yeah.
What about La Jolla Cove?
Yeah.
Imperial Beach?
Yeah.
Pacific Beach?
Yeah.
Del Mar Beach? I didn't even get to anywhere else yet. Meaning, 8 billion, it's not even the sand in one beach has more sand than 8 billion. So to say the Jewish people are going to be like the sand of the sea is a crazy thing to say, because even if we made the whole world Jewish, it still wouldn't be true. It's a crazy thing to say, says Rabbi Yosse HaKohen. Meaning, this is what the Hegmon is asking Rabbi Yosse HaKohen. Amar lo, he tells him, lo al gargirei da'afar ke'amar. He's not talking about the sand here in the dirt. El ha'aretz hazot hi asuya geladim kigildei betzalim. This world is made of layers and layers, like onions. Shrek? Is that probably Shrek? V'chol glida min afar hu. And every layer is another layer of dirt. Vi אפשר למנות אותם גלדים, לומר כך וכך גלדים יש בארץ. הן מצד ריבוים, הן מצד שאי אפשר להעמיק עד התהום, לדעת את כולם, לספור את כולם. There's so many layers of this earth that it's impossible to tell you how many layers there are, or to go down all the way to the middle of the earth to see what's there. כך אי אפשר למנות את ישראל. That's the same way you can't count the Jewish people. הן מצד ריבוים, here's very interesting teaching. One reason is because the world, the Jewish people, there's so many that you can't count them. You accept that? He's going to tell you the real reason you can't count the Jewish people. הן מצד צניעות נשיהם ובנותיהם התמונות בירכתי ביתם. You can't ever count the Jewish people because their wives and their daughters are tznuot and they don't leave their house. So how are you going to count them if you can't see them? ואי אפשר להיכנס בכל בתיהם לדעת מניינם. And you can't go inside every house to count who's living in there. So I'm not going to be able to help you with that. So let's go to the next answer. דבר אחר. Another thing. לא על ריבוים הוא אומר, he's not talking about how many Jews there are, אלא על חוכמתם. Rather, we're talking about the wisdom of Am Yisrael. ובעפר ארץ ישראל משתאה קרה. The pasuk is talking about the dirt of the land of Israel. ורוצה לומר, he's trying to tell you, שאי אפשר למנות את הפירות והעשבים והדשאים שיגדל עפר ארץ ישראל. There is no way for you to count from the dirt of Eretz Israel to tell you how many fruits, how many plants, how much grass is going to come out of that dirt. לומר כך וכך מינים מגדל ולא יותר. This many apples will grow, this many trees will grow. I once saw, I think it was a Buddhist teaching, but I can't tell you for sure. I don't remember where I saw it. It was a long time ago. I don't know if it was actually Buddhist, because I'm not sure this is the right... They claim it came from the East. It doesn't matter if it did or didn't. It's true in either way. It says every idiot can count how many seeds are in an apple. But only God can count how many apples are in each seed. You don't know what's inside of this earth, what it can give out, what it can't give out. We say you can't count. You're talking about potential of this earth. We see the land of Israel can grow things, even when people thought the land of Israel couldn't grow anything. The Jews came, and you know what happened once. They tell a story about a man. He dies. He's a rabbi. He gets in a plane crash. Him and a priest and an imam. They were all in an interfaith meeting. The plane crashes. They all die. They come to the next world, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, all of you, you're going to hell. So they send them to the hell elevator. Yeah, the elevator, very good. And they press number 1. Everyone gets worse and worse and worse and worse. They press number 1. They take the imam, they throw him out. Fire! Screaming. They see they go down. The temperature is going higher, higher. They go down. But nothing of this is true, right? There's no such thing in the Torah. They go next level, and they take the priest, they throw him out. He's screaming, it's heat, it's fire, burning. They go down one more. They go even more. They go even more. Finally, the doors open up. The rabbi's terrified. What's going to happen over there? All of a sudden, he sees grass and waterfalls and flowers. People are in circles, have nagila, they're dancing around over there. He looks at the Satan. He says, "What is this?" The Satan peeks out. We've dropped a bunch of Zionists down here a few weeks ago. Look what they did to the place. We came to Eretz Yisrael in the early 1800s, in 1900s. There was a disaster what was going on in Eretz Yisrael. It was a disaster. But still today, when you go to Israel, I'm not telling you now as a fact. When you drive in Israel, you go to Tel Aviv, you go to Haifa, you go to Yerushalayim, you're going to see trees and flowers and bushes and plants. Drive right outside of that to any Arab village that you want, any one that you choose. And the only thing that grows there is olives and cactuses. Nothing else. It's dirt. Mark Twain, when he came to Israel, he said, I can't believe anybody would call this place the promised land. Aside from a few oranges the Jews managed to grow, there's nothing growing here. And then we came, and look what we did. Cherry tomatoes, seedless watermelons, all of these things from Israel. How did they manage to make ground grow that's not supposed to grow? So nobody can tell you what the land of Eretz is going to grow. This is the same way of the children of Avraham Avinu. You cannot limit the Jewish people to which wisdom they're going to decide to study. The Jewish people, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made their heart that it's open to study any wisdom in the world. And any type of work in the world, any trade, any profession. Any type of business. Just like you can't tell the earth what it's going to grow, you can't limit Am Yisrael into which wisdom it's supposed to study, into which profession it's supposed to have. I wanted to quote this teaching, not for the superiority of Am Yisrael over other people, but because you live in a generation, you and I, in which a certain type of Judaism exists, which has taught us, and the whole world, that Jewish people only study Torah. That we don't study anything else. And that's the only way to achieve the perfect Torah study, is to only study Torah. Which is the exact opposite of how our Chachamim viewed the Torah. The Rambam tells us how in his kitchen the Torah was the chef. But he needed all the other wisdoms to help the chef cook. You can't just have one chef cooking everything. Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg, I brought his books here. They just put them out again on the Torah. Those books were burned in Aleppo, in Syria. And they were put in cherem. They were excommunicated by the rabbis of Jerusalem. They put out the first 3 volumes of that book.
Which generation of rabbi?
Rabbi Yochanan Halevy was a rabbi in Leghorn, Italy in the early 1900s, late 1800s. One of the most famous Sephardic Chachamim ever. They've turned him into a controversial Chacham.
Was it the Yerushalmism?
It was the Sephardic rabbis. Yeah. It's a dark chapter of Sephardic history. If you want, in a moment, I can tell you the brief history. Rabbi Yochanan Halevy wrote a commentary on the Torah. He was living in Italy. He was very involved in what was going on in the Jewish world at the time, especially the birth of academic study of the Torah. They called it in Europe the Wissenschaft und Judentums. I don't know how to pronounce that word. That one, Judentum. These chevre, they decided to start reading the Torah in their own way. They're academics, biblical criticism, archaeology, all these types of things. So Rabbi Yochanan Halevy decided that he's going to write a commentary on the Torah using all of the sources that they respect to prove the Torah is true, to prove that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is real, to prove that the Chachamim had the true understanding of the Torah. He's not afraid to include all of the religions of the world, the New Testament, the Quran. He quotes extensively from the Gospels. He quotes extensively from different geologists, from historians, from philosophers. He quotes from archaeologists, magazines of his time. He wrote a whole commentary on the Torah using all of the sources everybody else respects to prove the beauty of the Torah. And so what do these rabbis do? Oh, he must be a heretic. They burn his books. The truth is that it's very possible that the rabbis that lived in those Sephardic countries were not yet influenced by the type of study that Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg saw. In Syria, I don't know you didn't have over there yet the Catholic Church. There were some missionaries, so we had Catholic missionaries that came. That's true. But for the most part, it wasn't such a big deal. Academia wasn't a thing yet in that part of the world, like it was in Europe. And so they probably didn't have a need for the type of Torah commentary Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg offered. I'm not saying they're right, but I'm saying that they saw this as a very strange production. But now, especially, you hear this in New York, we hear this happening in Israel. This conversation that, no, we don't want secular studies in yeshivot, we want, as if this is some Jewish ideal. A Jewish ideal that they invented. Can I bother you for Shmot of the Barbanel?
Rabbi, did a copy of his Torah commentary survive?
Yes, we have a copy of the Torah commentary. It has not been printed for about 100 years. And they just printed this summer the first 3 volumes of it in Hebrew. I just got my hands on it. It was brought to me. He's not willing to sell it to everybody, so it was brought to me to New York. And now when I was in New York, one of my students should be remembered for good, Chacham Benjamin Schofield, he went to bring it for me to exactly to where I was staying, and I brought it back here to San Diego.
How many volumes are there altogether?
There's 5 volumes, and we have 3. 3 so far. He'll put out some more. If you remember, we did some writings of Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg in the summer. We read about his take on Christianity. Remember, somebody got very mad at me in the summer. They stormed out of my lecture. Yeah, it's okay. Some people, it's not meant for them. I want to read to you from the Barbanel.
People talk about Judeo-Christian.
The same people that don't know anything about the Torah. It's okay. Here's the problem. I need a chumash also. Can I get a chumash, please? Toda rabba. I should have bookmarked this before class, but I'm just remembering about it now. So give me one moment and I'll do my best to find it for you. Parashat Ki Tisa. My father is the expert here on the Barbanel. Unfortunately, I don't always get a chance to go through this whole commentary. Let me see if I can find it quickly. The Barbanel here in Parashat Kitisa, he asks why Moshe Rabbeinu had to be on top of Har Sinai for 40 days. Let me see if I can find it. When I asked Rabbi Perez why people don't study so much the commentary of the Barbanel, he said because it's too long. Not in a bad way, just people don't have the attention span to
That's probably not the only reason.
Fine, we'll give that to you too. I'm sorry that I can't find it right now. Moshe Rabbeinu was on Har Sinai. Doesn't look happen. The Barbanel says that he was there. It should have the whole list of chokhmot. The reason Moshe Rabbeinu was there, the Barbanel quotes there 40 wisdoms. What you would call secular wisdoms. I don't believe that, but general wisdoms that a person needs. Math, science, so on and so forth. That a person needs in order to be able to understand the Torah. And the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu was on Har Sinai for 40 days was because each day he had to learn one of those wisdoms in order so that he could receive the Torah on day 40. I think we live in a world in which people are trying to push us into a corner where you can only study Torah, Torah, Torah. They don't realize that by limiting ourselves only to the study of what they consider to be Torah, we will never understand the Torah properly. And the Torah was given by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the creator of the whole world. And if he created the whole world, then everything that you see in the world is part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's creation. In order to understand the Torah that was given by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you should also need to understand the world that was given to us by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Those two things are necessary for each other. So, here ends the Shiur on Rabbi Yosse HaKohen. Before we do a little bit of Shulchan Aruch, any questions or comments before we call it a night?